Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome to the show. A different setting, a different subject. Well, anyway, not always the case, but it is good to look different from now. Well, I mean, every now and then. Yes, I've been on this show talking about medical care for many, many times, or maybe more times than I could remember. And yet, it was until yesterday when I met with my friend Rick Merloff, I'm sorry, Rick
Sure.
Sherloff, did I realize that there is another kind of care that I was not aware of. That is a long-term care, LTC in short. So, well, it really caught my attention because either I'm still too young to think about it, well, anyway, joking sometimes, well, or there is a blank that I left. Well, what if somebody happens that, well, of course, if I have a medical condition and I can go to hospital, if I have emergency, I can call an ambulance and then I can have a doctor attend me whatsoever. What if I have no medical condition, just I can't walk, right?
Yeah.
I was too weak to walk. Or I can't feed myself. How about that? Too old that I can't feed myself. So those happens in the area or falls in the category of LTC, long-term care. Today with me is my good friend, Mr. Rick Sherloff. And sir, he is a long-term care specialist. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really appreciated the party yesterday. Otherwise, we have to delay this subject. Okay, good. So, bring my audiences, just assume that they are as benighted as I am with the LTC.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Well, when people in the old days of whatever culture needed care, they had a support system around them, the family. Mm-hmm. We all lived together. For 1,000,000 years, human beings lived together. So if an old man or an old woman, the grandfather, the grandmother, could not do certain things, they could not walk, or they could not go to the bathroom, or they could not, this was helped by the children. Mm-hmm. Then came modern society and pulled us apart. First we lost the clan, then it became the nuclear family, and that been torn apart. So in the United States, for example, when that happens, yes, if I have medical insurance, I go to the hospital. What happens when I come out of the hospital is long-term care sometimes.
Oh yes, exactly.
So for example,
that's the area I wasn't able to think of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for example, there are millions of people either getting care at home, which is the majority, or they're getting care in a facility. Both cost money. Why? At home, maybe right now, my wife could take care of me. But what about 10 years from now? Maybe she can't take care of me by herself. Well, maybe the children will help. But the children don't live with us anymore. And as I was telling you before the program, what I've noticed in immigrant communities, including Chinese American community, is that at first, when I was in this business 15 years ago, I had almost no clients from Chinese Americans. Why? Because they had the traditional value, my wife will take care of me, my children will take care of me. But what happened was their children went to college someplace else and did not come home and live in maybe another place, even in the same city.
There's little change to the situation now, to the overall parameter that most of families have only one kid.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the one kid is occupied, and then you have no extra care.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Go ahead. Back.
Well, so what happens is that we need to hire people to help. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean, for example, let's say I needed care and my wife wants to take care of me, but she's older. Well, she can still manage the care, but not doing the physical labor of the care. To hire somebody for that. Well, what does that cost? In the state of California right now, that's going to cost on the order of $12 to $20 an hour. And it's actually more expensive in California than anywhere else in the country.
I can promise you that $20 easy.
That's easy.
Because in the restaurant,
Yeah.
you're talking about 15 and a half
That's
already.
right. That's right.
Obviously, to take care of a patient, or not a patient, a senior,
Yes.
who is incapable of moving,
Right.
no longer mobile.
Right.
So you have to do this, to do that, even shower him or her, so on and
That's
so forth. Right.
That's
so
right.
that's a lot of work. I can't even wonder. I even wonder if $20 would take care of it.
It's running close to $100,000 a year. But here's the problem. Most people's thinking, I'm not talking about Chinese American, I'm talking about the whole population, is just now understanding that the government will not take care of that more than 100 days. Medicare will pay for a facility for 100 days. On the 101st day, it's out of your pocket. The number one reason for long-term care claims in the insurance industry is Alzheimer's. 60% of claims, we call it cognitive impairment. It sometimes is labeled Alzheimer's, sometimes it's labeled dementia. But the point is, someone that has that needs care 24 hours a day.
Are you saying that for those people, those folks who are under the what they call it, the blue card, the white card, and stuff?
I'm
Well,
not familiar with the
I
blue
never
card.
know. I never know differences. The Medicare or Medicaid.
Yes.
Is that the government or system cares only for 100 days.
Well,
No longer. I mean, nothing more than 100 days.
there's two, let's break it in two pieces. Medicare, 100 days, facility only, no home care. No home care. So if I go to a facility and I meet the criteria of Medicare, they'll pay me for 100 days for a bed. 101st day, I'm out of my own pocket. Now, Medicaid, or here we call it Medi-Cal, is different. The problem is you have to be broke. You cannot have more than $2,000 assets plus some jewelry and a car. And there are some attorneys that try and play with that and hide the assets. The government's making it harder and harder. You have to do that more years in advance and so forth. So it's not a viable option. So what happens is that people are saving their whole lives. They're working, they're saving, they're helping their children, and now they go into their old age, they have a fixed income, they have a nice lifestyle, and all of a sudden one person might have a stroke, might have Parkinson's, might have Alzheimer's. The entire financial structure of that family is attacked at $100,000
The
a year.
problem is that most of the time they do not only need the facilities, they need their care.
Yes.
They're caretakers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, like say by the bed, like say every, like 2 hours every day or something, like that kind of thing.
Well,
That
yeah.
has nothing related with the facilities. It could be just in your own home. So that is the part the system does not cover. Am I right?
Well, even the facility, it does not cover after 100 days. So if I have to go to an assisted living or for a month in a nursing home or a year, it's going to cost me a lot of money. I'll give you an example. I said that cognitive impairment was the number one reason for claim for this kind of insurance. And it's about 60% of the claims. Well, if you look at the American Alzheimer's Association website, the average duration, how long it's going to be, is 4 to 8 years. So now we're talking about over $500,000.
4 to 80 years towards the death,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the other end is it only depends on how soon you die. if you live longer than 80 years, it's still the same thing.
Yes,
Am I right?
that's correct.
So it is the open end.
Yes, it is.
It's open end till forever.
Right.
If you live forever, the problem is forever.
That's right.
Oh, that's horrible.
It is.
All right.
I'm sorry. It
And
is
I'm
unpleasant.
well. The only problem is that I'm too young to think about it, so I never thought about it, and I never thought someday I could not be able to move. All right. Well, it wasn't until yesterday when I met with Rick did I realize, oh my God, it could be me. Someday it could be me. All right, or maybe tomorrow, something like that.
People ask me every day. People ask me, what is the right time to start thinking about long-term care insurance? And I've thought about it seriously to answer them honestly, whether I should say 45 years old, 55 years old. What do I say to this person? What is the right answer? And I've come to a conclusion there is one right answer.
And yeah, what is that?
When the light goes on
When the light goes on.
inside your mind, that you realize there's a risk to your whole family, not just yourself.
Such as myself, all of a sudden realize it is my time to do it.
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah,
Okay. On the other hand, what doesn't make sense to me is that you supposed to have no more than $2,000 in assets. So if you're down to that point, though, how about food? You don't even have food money,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
$2,000 would buy you how many hamburgers?
Right, not enough.
Right?
Not
Put it that
enough.
way. And then suppose if you consume all the hamburgers, you die. You have the care next to you provided, and yet you have no hamburgers at all.
Right.
And you're dying of hunger.
Jack, let me back out to a big macro view.
Yeah, probably let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll still want to see the necessity of the program.
Yeah.
That sounds so interesting, so important to me that I'd like to continue digging until we find out more. Stay with us, please. Hello, dear friends, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West Show. Only today with a different setting, because we are talking about different subject. Well, not necessarily. I'm joking. And we are busy doing other programs right now. What else is good? I feel better feeling here. So, talking about the healthcare, it is never a subject that I not talking about so many times repeatedly. But the LTC program, long-term care program, is the first time. And shame on me, I never thought to myself, I have an excuse because I'm still too young to think about it. But according to my friend Rick, well, it's about time. What if 20 years from now something happens and all of a sudden you're kind of confined in bed. So, my friend Rick Sherloff, and I met yesterday, and I thank him a lot for bringing the subject. So once again, welcome to the show.
Thank
All
you.
right. Back to the point though, when compared the LTC, which we later on will discuss all the categories, right?
Yes.
The government-run programs, the Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever, or Covered California. Take Covered California, for example, right? Covered California.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't deal with long-term care.
Doesn't deal with the long-term care.
No.
So once you're out of hospital, suppose you're a good person, healthy person, kick and alive,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't recognize a fact that there are people who are incapable of handling themselves, even though they have no emergency or certain medical conditions. Could you be just too old to walk?
Well, there's two things. First of all, when people get old, even though they might not go to the hospital immediately, let's say they have incontinence. They won't be in the hospital for that. But that creates a problem for them. They can't take care of themselves. Or if someone does go in the hospital, let's say they fall. They break a leg, they break a wrist, something. They come out of the hospital and they're not able to bathe themselves, or they might not be able to do everything for themselves.
Or even feed themselves.
Or even feed themselves sometimes. If they have Parkinson's, if they have cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's. So now what happens to, for example, a spouse? Well, I'll give you a statistic. Family members who are primary caregivers, or let me turn it around, primary caregivers who are family members get, after 6 months, 40% of them get clinical depression. It's serious.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're trapped taking care of this person. They can't even go out to, get their hair done or to go shopping. So that's why they hire somebody to come in. So unless you have less than $2,000 assets, you're going to start paying out of pocket $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year. That's stressful all by itself. That's why there's the insurance.
The only thing is the duration.
Yes.
It was long enough, it could just consume everything, every bit, no matter how good or how good your daughters and sons are.
That's right.
Right? It can consume it.
Yes.
So.
And oftentimes, the daughter and the son are having so much activity in their own lives between work and raising their children. And if they live more than a mile or two away, how are they going to get over there? In Los Angeles, for example.
All right.
Or
It
the Bay
sounds
Area.
so legit. It sounds so important,
Yes.
put it that way. So what if somebody does have the care, did buy the care, what would it provide? For example, something happens to me tomorrow. I can't move, right? So what would the system provide? LTC provide?
Right. If someone gets long-term care, has a long-term care insurance policy, then they will get paid care. So up to a certain amount a month, which right now the cost of care is about $8,000 to $10,000 a month in California.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's average. I had an uncle in Studio City last year who was paying $11,000 a month. So when you purchase a policy, you decide how much you want to afford. You might only want to afford 75% of that because you keep your premium lower. So let's say you get $6,000 a month and you're out of pocket $3,000 a month. Well, $3,000 a month is not going to make you broke in a short time. But $10,000, $11,000 a month will.
I mean, of course, yeah.
And also it creates the insecurity of a remaining spouse. The children are concerned. What can we do to help? Don't worry, we have insurance paying for it. And I'll give you an example. It's a little bit comical from my own personal life, my mother. My mother did not have a policy. By the time I was in this business, she was ill. She could not get it because you can only get a policy if you're healthy. So my mother had a stroke. She was living at home by herself. My father was already gone. We hired somebody 24/7. And my mother was worried that she would spend all her money. She grew up in the Depression. She didn't like to spend money. So she was very worried about spending all her money. So what did I do? Once a week, I went to the Bank of America ATM. I took out the money for the caregiver for the week. I put it on top of the refrigerator, and I told my mother, the government's paying for everything, don't worry about it.
Okay, you cheat her. Yeah,
I cheated her.
I
lied to my mother.
Yeah, in a friendly way, yeah.
Yeah. Because what's the point of her worrying? Now, if she had had a policy, she wouldn't have had to worry, and I wouldn't have had to lie to her. But the point is that people need to plan for that when they're young enough and healthy.
I mean, my concern, I believe most of my audience concern is that how much would the care provide? To what extent would the care provide?
Well, some people like to buy a policy for, to give them $10,000 a month benefit. But if you get a policy for, let's say, 4 years, $10,000 a month, and you're 60 years old, it's going to cost you around $10,000, $12,000 a year, depending. For each individual is a little different. So when people see that number, they go, well, what if I lower that and just get a policy for $6,000 or $8,000 benefit? I can pay $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 out of pocket, but it's not going to break me. But if I have to pay for 3 or 4 years at $10,000, $11,000 a month, I'm going to be very stressed.
I know. It sounds like you're talking about two ends, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're talking about how big your premium is.
Yes.
You're talking about how big your benefit is, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of a balanced thing.
That's
give
right.
Give me some average example, just to indicate to my lovely audiences how much they are expecting. For example, give me a regular case, like an average case.
Well, the average age for people purchasing this insurance has gone from 61 down to 56 years old. That's the average age in the country. My clientele tend to be between mid-50s and 70 years old. And if I take somebody who's 60 years old, let's say a couple, maybe each person's policy will cost them $3,000 a year. So that's $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in there. It's their decision, how much or how little.
$6,000 a year altogether.
Yeah.
Altogether.
For both parties.
That's $500 per month.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, they can get it lower, or they can decide they want more coverage.
Okay. For that $500 a month, I just want to quantify it.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for that, what kind of benefit they shall expect?
Well, I'm just approximating, but let's say in the neighborhood of $6,000, $7,000 a month benefit. Depends how long. There's even one policy available for unlimited benefits. 10 years ago, that's all we sold was unlimited benefits. And we sold 5% compound, so every year it got larger by 5%.
For the unlimited service, though, what kind of premium are you talking about?
Well, there's only one policy available in the state of California for that. And that policy is what we call hybrid, because it uses life insurance to fund the policy. So people move over $50,000, $75,000, $100,000. That buys them the basic policy. And if they want the rider that makes it life, that they'll keep paying you for 10, 15, no matter how many years, they'll keep paying you. That's going to cost somebody more like $7,000, $8,000 a year just by itself. So they put they transfer money into it, which they can do from 401k or IRAs, whatever. They transfer into it. That gets them that policy. Now, if they put $75,000 or $100,000 there, and they never use the policy, more than that will go to their children, to their beneficiaries. Okay? So either they are guaranteed to get it on claims, or it will go to beneficiaries, or if they want the money back, they take it. No problem.
All right, okay. My dear audience, today we're touching a very important or serious subject that even though all the time we're talking about medical care, medical insurance all the time, we seldom paid attention to the fact that how we want to take care of people in the long term being that when they are old enough, or certain time, certain years at age when they are too old to take care of themselves, right? So that could be a part, well, if inevitable to everybody, unless you die in a sudden way, boom, like a bird, like a bird drop, right? Okay. Anyway, today with me is my good friend, Mr. Rick Sherloff. He is a specialist in the long-term care. Let's take a short moment now. We come back, we'll find out how to buy, how to qualify, and those details. Please, all right, stay with us. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. My dear audiences, welcome back to the show. Jack Chow on the East West Show. Today we're talking about a brand new subject. The subject might not be brand new, but to me it's brand new because I'm too young to think about it. Now all of a sudden I realize that I need to talk about it. Well, it sounds like a subject that I owe my audience for a long time, right? Thank God I have this friend, Mr. Rick Cherloff. He is in the long-term care specialist. He is highlighting on this issue. And to lots of folks, you got to start early. You got to think about how you want to plan it. Speaking of planning it, though, I know 62 used to be the retirement age.
Mm-hmm.
Now they lift it to 65, right?
Yes.
65. In other words, 65, they're considered old men, old people, right? Even though they are still kicking life, right? So do you think it is a good way to consider the long-term care, taking the retirement as a turning point?
That's when most people think about this kind of planning. This is the piece of planning often left out by a financial planner, for example. Not all. Now some financial planners start bringing it up. Unfortunately, they're not usually experts at the details of this. And yet, yes, to answer your question, it is a good time as you approach retirement to put things in order. And also because you're hopefully still healthy enough to qualify for a policy, which is not always easy. 1/3 of all applications in the country, all companies, are declined, rejected because of health reasons. So we have a saying, you can only purchase a long-term care insurance policy with your health, not just your money.
Say it again.
You can only purchase a long-term care insurance policy with your health. Because today, if I'm healthy, doesn't mean I will be tomorrow. And I can only get a policy if I'm healthy.
Oh, I see. So in other words, of course, the insurance company are doing business, right?
Yes.
And we also have to take their perspective to look into the matter. In other words, from their perspective, the healthier the person, the applicant,
Yes.
the lesser the risk.
Correct.
All right?
Correct.
Okay, now, and also on the other hand, they indicate the healthier the person, the longer they last, even after they're hit by long-term diseases,
Yes.
such as Alzheimer's,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how do you balance it?
Well, first of all, the companies, as you indicated, want people to last a long time before they go on claim because they're collecting their premium a long time. They don't. They take in the money and invest it. They don't have to pay it out right away.
Yeah, sure.
But part of the problem that we face now is that medical science keeps us alive longer. So instead of being on the farm and having our body break down from work, our body keeps going from the medical science, but the brain gets older. So there's more Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's, as I said earlier in the last segment, is the #1 reason for claim across all companies. So what they want to do, and the companies recognize this, they used to have unlimited programs. Now there's one left. There's only one left. But when they saw the rise in Alzheimer's that was undiagnosed previously, they realized that their claims were going to go longer. So now they had to adjust the price for that. It's a little more expensive. But but now people realize the risk, if I get Alzheimer's, I had an aunt and an uncle married together who each one had Alzheimer's They needed care for 10 years each. It destroyed their savings. And their kids were not living here. They were living in Northern California. So when you look at the risk, what you realize is you might feel a responsibility to your spouse, to your children, to not be a burden on them completely, to put them into a management position and have the care that you'll have to pay for insured. That's kind of the thinking now.
In other words, regardless, it's going to be an expensive thing getting old,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
While you're earning less,
Right.
your retirement benefit is only limited to this much.
Right.
And yet, on the other hand, you face so many unknowns,
This is true.
which is true, right?
Right.
Okay.
This is
Now,
actually the largest insurable risk.
I would take the a little bit challenge to to this concept, the LTC concept, to the Chinese American traditions of having the wife and children taken care of.
Yes.
When the system fairly, I would say, not cheap,
Right.
right? Not cheap.
Right.
So the family, if I talk to my son, say, hey, give me $500 every month, so I want to buy a policy that will release you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And he, you know what he will say? I'll do my job. I'll do it.
Right.
Let's say 500 now.
Right.
So how do you balance the two, please?
We used to say we'd be talking to people in their 60s with children, and they'd say, I need to talk to my children. And we could say,
Oh yeah.
you
All
know,
right.
and we said, that's a very good idea. But keep in mind, your children are going to say, don't worry about it, I'll take care of you. And they mean that from their heart. But they don't know what it means in their life because it's going to happen 20 years from now, 15 years from now. So the question is, I'd say twofold. The first question is, do you feel a responsibility? I don't mean you, of course, but I mean us older people. Do we feel a responsibility to protect our assets? Is that what we'd want to do? So if you take 2%, 3% of your assets and put that for insurance to protect the rest of your assets, you're building a wall around your castle of assets.
Oh yeah. All right. Protection.
Right. Now, how high the wall should be is an individual consideration. But I know people, for example, that have $2-3 million of assets. They say, oh, I don't need to worry. But ask yourself, if you or your spouse and you have spent your life carefully constructing those assets, taking care of those assets, and all of a sudden the assets start leaving at $10,000 a month, what's the emotional effect? Why go through that? If I can take $75,000 and put it here, and I'm protected.
Most true when they work out their whole life to accumulate the assets, though, and now it's being leaked out, being consumed in a way faster than way faster than it's accumulated.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But after all, there's also a concept to talk about. Why do we accumulate assets? Because we want to live better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, now we're facing and declining years.
Right.
Right? You want to make sure that you live with dignity
Yes.
during the declining years. It is time to consume your assets anyway. Right? So, and on the other hand, should I leave the money to my kid, or should I use the money to give to the care? So in between, the LTC comes in. Am I right?
That is right.
Very good.
It's a way to balance it.
I finally got it.
You got it.
Now, my dear audience, today we touch base with my good friend Rick with a very important subject, that in life, after all, you're talking about balance, right? So here's the way to balance, right? Talking about LTC. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please.
I'm glad you.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the show. Better setting, different setting. I like it. With my friend Rick, we are touching base with you with the subject that looks new to me. The reason being because I'm so young, too young to talk about it. But when I all of a sudden realized how important it is, I said, no, it is about me. It is about me. So it's LTC, long-term care. People talk about LTR all the time. You know what LTR? Long-term relationship.
Oh.
All of a sudden, when LTR turns into LTC, though, you find yourself lost. Anyway, talking about how to read the importance of LTC, I recommend after chatting with Rick, I believe that balance is a good word, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I just now heard you mention about the word Tai Chi.
Yes.
Is a balance thing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How do you really balance it, please?
Well, when we're young, most people find it necessary to buy life insurance to protect against catastrophe if a wage earner or money earner is lost or their capacity is lost. There's insurance that will protect the family. So with Tai Chi, you move from one leg balance to the other leg balance because we have to change. As we get older, our need for insurance, our risk changes. The risk changed from losing the income to protecting the assets from the cost of care. This transition is happening around the country. And it's, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's occurring to immigrant communities that the society does not structure their children to take care of them. We don't all live together anymore. And even though the children might love the parents and feel responsible, they might not be even physically present enough to do that. So the parents say, I need care. Now I'm going to back up for a second to say, in the planet Earth, there's 3 different ways that we take care of this. 60-70% of the people in the world have each other to take care of it. That's their method. They don't have financial resources. They have each other. They live together, very close with other family members. Then there's another group, which I would include Europe, China, Japan, Australia, Korea, the more technologically advanced countries, but not including the United States, use socialism in a different way of socialism where they pay very good income after retirement. So I was told actually yesterday at that gathering by someone from China that's how they take care of it. But in the United States, we don't have that piece. Very often, people think the government's going to take care of it here because it seems natural they would.
That's what I thought.
Right. But the government does not, as we talked about.
Only
Medicare
to a certain limit.
Yes, Medicare is only 100 days. And otherwise, unless you have absolutely nothing but $2,000 total assets, and they will not pay for it.
100 days, though, you put a revolver next to your pillow. And a decisive day comes, and then, well, you make a decision.
Well, that's interesting, Jack, you say that, because that comes to the way men and women think differently about long-term care.
How? Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, how differently do men and women think differently?
In the last 17 years I've been in this business, it's always been a struggle with men. The women want it. They tell the man to call me. The man calls me. He starts talking about it, but then he wanders off. Why? And now we think we've discovered why. Because as men, for millions of years, we were conditioned to hunt. And when we hunt, we need to ignore risk. Because if you and I are out hunting in the forest and we hear a bear make a huge sound, we have a choice. We can go home hungry or we can kill the bear.
Okay.
So we decide we don't care what the risk is. We go forward.
We're used to running into risks.
Yes. But we do not necessarily take into consideration this kind of risk because it means we're vulnerable and we don't want to think of ourselves as vulnerable. Women, on the other hand, they're looking out for the whole family and they are not concerned about their pride of risk the way we are. So they say, you know what, we need to get this. Now, as I was explaining to you a little bit ago, at first, 10, 15 years ago, immigrant communities, including Chinese American communities, the man would not be disposed to do this. I could tell the woman would talk to me about it, but the man said, well, that's good, but I'll leave my money in investments and it will grow. Well, this is not investments. What I learned from this response is, looking at history, every single corporation, I'm sure yours and every single corporation in the modern world has investments and it has insurance. So there's our balance again. If you have one without the other, you're leaving yourself open to
It is always a balance.
Yes.
In between men and women, there's a balance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And in risk and for safety, there's always a balance.
Yes.
Anyway, after all, it is inevitable. Everybody, men, women, you, I, whoever, is gonna, it's inevitable. Everybody dies.
Yep.
Right. Before dying, there's a period of time, right? We call it declining years, right? Like that kind of thing. During the declining years, certain labor are needed at your bedside, to make sure you feel comfortable.
Yes.
Right? At least to improve you, right? Now, somebody, either you or your wife, your kid, your society, your money, your assets would do the job.
Yes.
It is you to decide who do the job.
That's right.
Am I right?
Yes.
The way I understand it?
You are.
All right. The early management to who does the job, though, would provide a shiftable or manageable condition for later on. Am I right?
You are right. So in long-term care insurance, the companies do not decide, if I go to a facility, they do not decide which one. They'll pay for any facility in any state. If I'm at home, which is 60% of care, they do not decide which home agency comes in. They will pay the agency for the labor up to the limit, but they don't pick it. They don't choose it. And my company, which is a national brokerage, has finally realized that even just the insurance is not enough, so that now we have a program. So if I needed care today and I needed to find a facility today, anywhere in the country, I call these people, they will take care of it. In 24 hours, I'll have the right facility that's been vetted, that is a quality place. And afterwards, let's say I'm in a different city, we have what we call a care audit that you can purchase, and they will find out what the quality of care is today and report back to the children or to the other spouse.
That's very good to know. That's very good to know. If my audience want to learn more about LTC, you have a website?
The best way to get a hold of me is to call me here in Los Angeles. You can call from anywhere in the state at 818-997-1751 and schedule an appointment with me to talk. Okay, very good. All right, my audience says, I'm so happy. Finally, I did something that I missed. And I've been talking about healthcare, Obamacare, Trump care, whatever, all the time for a year and a half already. And this is the care that's more legit, no longer. I mean, regardless of whose care it is, that kind of care for that period of time is so important.
My appreciation goes to my friend Rick, and thank you for shedding lights on this issue. To my audiences, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.